What a pass. Giddy underneath for JRE. The reverse and the rookie-to-rookie action. Outside the Dort. He'll get the flyby. 3 on the way, and he rattles it in. SGA defended closely by Westbrook. Tough. Step back. Gets up the shot. Banks it in for the lead.
This is Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, and welcome to the Uncontested Podcast. We are a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, the official podcast of SI Thunder. I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Niffen. I've got Justin Peabody with me.
Hello, everybody.
We've got Taylor Peterson along for the ride.
Just a little simple math here to start out the podcast. I believe the Suns entering today's game were the number 1 overall seed in the West. The Thunder beat the number 1 overall seed. So if my math works out there, Thunder, number 1 team in the West, Poku. Give me the odds on Poku, finals MVP.
That's how it works, man. Can't argue with logic, Taylor.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
We are coming to you guys live Sunday, April 3rd at 9 p.m. on the heels of the Thunder beating the Phoenix Suns. A final score that I don't even want to remember, but I'm looking it up right now. 117-96.
You sure this isn't a post game from like 2-3 seasons ago?
Yeah, exactly. This is a post game from 2016. Gentlemen, for a brief moment in our lives, the Thunder had done it. Top 3 lottery odds, that 14% chance at the number 1 pick. The most important part, they could only slide to 7, and they would have had a 60+% chance at a top 5 pick. Dashed. Gone. We've been bamboozled, led astray, run amok, hoodwinked. So before we break down this game, we're also going to do Thunder Superlatives today, which I'm very excited for. We're going to take a lot of social media questions. Before that, though, collectively, I think the Thunder fandom is very upset, very angry, firing off a lot of hot takes about the Thunder winning a basketball game. So I wanted us to take, let's say, 30 to 60 seconds right now. You two got to be ready because we're just going to fire from the hip. Give me your most ridiculous, absurd, angry, hot takes about the tank and the Thunder winning a basketball game. Go.
You play the game to win. I can't watch this team if they're just trying to lose. What are they thinking? Presti needs to be fired.
It only took Detroit 1.5 seasons to tank and get Cade Cunningham, and now look at where they're at. The Thunder, teams tank like them all the time, and it doesn't get them anywhere.
Black eye the NBA. Also, these new lottery odds, it doesn't even make sense to tank. Why would a team tank with these odds?
Thunder are just getting what they deserve, unlike the Rockets, who are tanking the right way. Right, guys?
It's all because the Thunder stole the Seattle Supersonics from Seattle. Karma. Hashtag Seattle curse.
Sam Presti's in his office right now, just breaking stuff, kicking things, cussing people out.
When will Shai Gilgeous-Alexander request a trade?
When will he get tired of all the losing?
All Shai needs is a team that wants to win.
Got a free Shai. Hashtag free Shai. Okay, that's enough. I feel bad now.
All right. We had to get it out. I hope you guys like that with a little bit of I'm upset by Drake in the background. Just felt fitting. Felt fitting. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about this basketball game. We've got the negative out of the way, right? Mm-hmm. We just vented. The negatives are out there. We're done. Moral of the story, we want the Thunder to have the best odds possible. We want them to not be able to slip because we want them to get a good draft pick, get a good player, and get back to relevancy in the NBA. The draft lottery is still a month and a half away. We have no control over the way those ping pong balls are going to come down the little hopper through the little chute and pop up on the screen. So there's no point in us stressing about it now. It's happened. So let's look at the positives from this game. Taylor, I'm going to lead off with you. Give us a positive that you took away from tonight that will maybe make us a little less upset.
I mean, I could pretend to ease into this, but I think we just have to start off with the big one. That is Alexei Pokusevsky. Really, again, he didn't play on Friday because he had flu-like symptoms. I covered that a little bit.
Is this Poku's flu game, Taylor?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. I love it. That is right. Poku's flu game. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. Now the 12th youngest player to ever record a triple-double in NBA history, and the seventh player to triple-double as a player for OKC. 7 of 14 from the field, which might even be the biggest thing for Poku. We keep talking about that consistency and how important that is for his development. And we're seeing that with him getting a bigger opportunity here with a lot of players out. And not just that, but he did this listed as a center, I think, on the lineup, or a power forward, whatever you want to call it, but basically was playing point guard for a lot of that time, or at least Daignault was running the offense through him. So I think Poku's continued development on both ends of the floor, right? And being able to put up stats like this, rather, I get the idea that some players have to score, some players have to get rebounds and assists when others are out, and there's so many players out. But at the same time, a lot of what Poku did tonight felt sustainable compared to maybe like if you go and look at our YouTube and you see some of the highlight reels that we've done, and you go back like 2 seasons to like Poku's career high. That didn't seem super sustainable compared to what we've seen through this recent stretch of games, kind of culminating tonight with this 17 point, 10 rebound, 12 assist triple-double. So I'm curious your guys' thoughts on Poku as well.
The stat line for Poku tonight is just incredible. You've already mentioned the 17, 10, and 12, but 0 free throws, 60% from 3, a steal, a block, 6 turnovers, and 5 fouls. I mean, every spot besides free throws where you can get a statistic, Poku racked up multiple of them.
Mm-hmm. He was doing all the things, including getting Chris Paul on a rip move, which was probably my favorite moment of the whole night, because you could tell Chris Paul was infuriated that Poku got that. Incredible. He did have 6 turnovers. However, 5 of those came like pretty quick in the game. Not an excuse, obviously. It's part of the Poku experience. But the second half, he played much more controlled, much more within himself. He course corrected. I think the Suns were defending him pretty well. They were being pretty aggressive. That third quarter, the Suns just sleepwalked, and Poku turned it up, and he adjusted. He started hitting more shots. He started finding more passing lanes, started playing more controlled all around. And that's how you end up with the stat line like he did tonight. And not just him, right? Like everybody was kind of filling up the stat sheet. You look at it and kind of across the board, like it's a super well-balanced stat sheet. Nobody really kind of, put this team on their back tonight. It was a really kind of balanced effort from everybody that played for OKC.
Well, I mean, Olivier Sarr, but outside of Olivier.
Yeah, Justin, you said that the Phoenix Suns sleepwalked through that.
Yeah.
Sleepwalked. I don't know the correct term there. Through the second half.
Yeah.
I don't even think there was any walking involved. I think they were just sleeping.
Yes.
Like that's how bad it was.
The second they announced they were going to sit those guys, Ayton and Crowder and Booker, I was like, you guys, like, don't F around with this Thunder team. Like, other teams need to know better.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But I also had this, and I'm not to take us completely off topic, but just kind of my overall theme of this game and something I've really been kind of reflecting on and pondering upon over the past week or so. More and more so as the Thunder have either won some of these games or up until tonight, maybe haven't won them, but made it way too close for comfort. This is kind of what happens when you throw out a bunch of G League players to tank and you just flat out sit some of these other guys, right? Like the Phoenix Suns, to your point, Justin, and the reason I bring this up is they are already locked into that 1 seed.
Yep.
So they don't really have a ton of incentive to go out there. And I mean, they're basically playing to try and avoid injuries. at this point.
Whereas
right?
the guys on this Thunder team are playing for their NBA career.
Literally playing for their NBA careers. That's not an over exaggeration. You're spot on, Jacob. Like these are either G League guys, two-way guys that have all been called up, or young players that are on the Thunder roster but are trying to earn playing time. And this, for a lot of these players, we talked about Teo, Olivier Sarr. I mentioned him in the big game that he had tonight. Like this is kind of potentially their only opportunity in a situation where they, like if they weren't with the Thunder, maybe they don't even get this opportunity in their career. So you have guys fighting for their NBA lives versus a team very much not doing that. And this is kind of what happens.
I think that's what makes it so tough to kind of predict how the tank race plays out down the stretch, is because you can't necessarily point at the schedule and say that should be a loss, that should be a win, because there's so many other factors. Like there's no reason anybody would have pointed at the schedule and saw Thunder Suns and predicted a 20-point Thunder win. But here we are.
100%. Yeah. Poku's game was fun tonight. He started feeling himself in that second half. There was a point, I think it was in that third quarter. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. Until the Thunder started to pull away, I wasn't real invested in this one, making some dinner while watching the game. There was a point where Poku had like a really slick pass, and then he had I'm trying to remember the play exactly. It was a pick and roll where he got downhill off of a SAR screen, hit like a Euro, fake the pass, went up like he was going to lay it up, and then try to hit like a wraparound pass. And the whole bench like got up and started like, like how they do, like start high-kneeing and getting all excited. It ended up not being anything, but Poku was just kind of getting in his bag tonight. He had some sauce on some of those plays. Really just, you could see the confidence growing. Which I don't think has ever really been an issue with Poku and having confidence. But whenever he has confidence and it's working, it's a pretty fun thing to watch. Another thing from Poku that I don't know if you guys noticed this tonight, the Suns put Cameron Payne on him at certain points in time, which was just amusing to me because you could do the whole little kid trick where you put one kid on top of another kid with a trench coat. And you could do that with Poku. Cameron Payne, and it would equal Poku. But there was also a play where Poku got set a screen and got the switch. Poku was the screener, and Chris Paul switched onto him, and Poku sealed him, backed him down, caught a deep post pass, turned around, just went over the top. Those little things, really fun to see. And then Taylor, I know you had tweeted about this at the end of the game, but just not the vets, but the building blocks of this team, Shea, Josh, Dort, all rushing the court to give Giddy. I said Josh.
Oh, sorry. Who's Josh?
All rushing the court to give Poku a Gatorade bath. It was kind of fun. It was kind of fun. Was it worth giving up the third overall lottery picks? Hell no.
No.
But it was kind of fun to watch.
Man. And that moment right there also kind of makes me just want to ring it again. Like you combine that with what we saw Friday night's game, where the Thunder have, I already forgot what they officially call it, but essentially where they have all their quote unquote alumni, aka all the veterans that have played for the Thunder, come back.
Legacy weekend.
Legacy weekend. Thank you. Where these guys are coming back. And there was a video of Presti, like they threw a special event after the game over at the Omni, where Presti's like giving a live toast and speech and stuff. And, you just don't see that from other organizations. So like that combined with like the special moment again at post game with Poku getting showered, but from his teammates, like it's just very humorous that all these national media and all these other, these media people from other teams are out there like talking about how terrible the tank is and culture must be in OKC, how awful it must be for these players. And then meanwhile, the Thunder just going about their business and having fun doing it and looking forward to getting into contention again.
Very much so. So, hey, let me ask you guys a question about this game. A good friend of mine asked me earlier this week, and I think it's a really good question that is incredibly applicable to tonight. Justin, you mentioned it earlier. It wasn't just Poku. We had 7 guys in double figures. Teo Maladone got to 9 points, and then Jalen Horde only got 4. But a lot of guys putting up really impressive stat lines tonight. I had a friend ask me earlier this week, what the hell do you do with all of this? Like, how do you interpret this as far as long-term is concerned? Like a Poku triple-double shooting 50% from the field. Like, is this something real and a building block and part of his progression? Or is this just the Phoenix Suns really not caring at all and somebody on the Thunder has to score points? The same thing for Wiggins dropping 17 and 6 points, or Vít Krejci shooting poorly but having 8 assists. Like, are those 8 assists, is that really indicative of the type of 6'8" playmaker Vít can be? Or is this just garbage stats in a garbage game at the garbage time of the year?
That's a really good question. And I actually think that's a very spot on question for this time of the season. The Thunder found themselves in a very similar situation last season as well, in terms of the kind of players that they were throwing out there. Like, for example, Jalen Hord's up on a 10-day contract right now, but he was kind of getting the Olivier Sarr minutes that Olivier is getting currently this season, right? So I don't know. I even think back to some of my post games, or even some of my comments here on previous week podcasts over the past month, 2 months. And here I am getting so upset with Teo for going off at the last minute and scoring 28 points and getting us some of these wins. And then I find myself trying to make excuses for people like Poku, Poku had a triple double and this was great. Even, it sucks that they got the win, but at least Poku played well. A little hypocritical, I think, on my part. So I'm trying to do a better job of seeing the bigger picture. And to your point, Jacob, I think a lot of these things, it really does come down to especially at this point of the season. And Justin said, that it's so hard to predict some of these games. You don't know if the Suns are just going to sleepwalk through a game, and that might allow some players like Olivier Sarr to go off for 24 points. So I think you really kind of have to, and something I keep thinking of is last season, Dagnall mentioned, a sample size for him. He really likes a 20 game period. So I like to look at, I like to try and remind myself to look at the bigger picture here, and try and think back to towards the start of all this, when Shea was sitting, and maybe, when Bays officially got his injury and has been sitting out for the past, 2 weeks now. And you do see some consistent things. I don't have stats pulled up in front of me for that, but I think you can talk about how Poku has played well and more consistently. You can talk about a guy like Aaron Wiggins continue to, he had a career high, which we won't see him score 20 plus points when some of these guys are back, but he showed that he can at least score the basketball when he has attention on him. I think that's big for when some of these other players come back. And you can kind of go down. I think Vít Krejci, his 3-point shooting, his space awareness on the offensive side of the ball. We talked a little bit about that. There's small things like that you can take from each of these players over a larger sample size, and you can say that's real. But Olivier Sarr scoring 24 points and being 5 of 6 from 3 just tonight, probably not real. Poku averaging a triple double, probably not real.
Maybe. Sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
I think it's empty calories. I think that it. Somebody has to score. Somebody has to put the ball in the basket. You're playing with basically no roster, the minimum number of guys you can have. And any basketball team in general, is going to put in 80-ish points. That's, distribute that among 8 guys. That's 10 points a person. So point. Scoring around double figures, I think, especially when you see it kind of evenly distributed, it's just they're going out and doing what is going to happen in an NBA basketball game when you get that many minutes, no matter kind of who you are or what player you are. I think what Taylor hit on is spot on. There's things that you're seeing in opportunities that they're getting, like Wiggins. He had some good moments early in the season scoring the basketball when Shea and Lou and Giddey were all playing. When the main guys were playing, he could still drop 20. It happened a few times. I think him continuing to get those opportunities, maybe to get even a little more offensive load, I absolutely think that's important for development. I don't think it's necessarily indicative of who he is as a player or who he will be or could turn into, because we saw it last year with Teo, with Moses Brown, with Isaiah Roby, with all those guys that were putting up gaudy numbers to end the season, and then started this season when everybody's full strength and you're getting teams best and the Thunder roster is filled out. They weren't doing that. And I think a lot of these guys
earn playing time.
Yeah, not even getting playing time, spending more time with the G League. I would say it's probably a similar story this year.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I agree. I think a lot of this is just garbage time, people putting up stuff. Some stuff might be real. You guys have talked about Aaron Wiggins a lot. I think some of Poku's consistency could be real. Besides that, I've been on this train for a long time. Like, don't believe the Teo Maladone numbers. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's bait. Don't believe Olivier Sarr 24 points. Who was it in the chat here? Eamon said, "Is Sarr the Rudy Gobert with the 3-point shot that we needed?"
He
Sarr
added
is like,
an LOL at the end.
yeah.
Okay, he was being a
Sarr
little
is like
funny.
5 cents on the Rudy Gobert dollar. It's just like it's nowhere close. Like, if I had to make a bet right now, I would say after this season, Olivier Sarr never plays NBA minutes again. Like that's kind of where I'm at with this at this point. So I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot to take away. And that's what makes winning these games even more pointless.
Yes.
Which is rather unfortunate. We've gone probably way too long talking about this Phoenix game, but any other thoughts besides the tank just took a few mortar shells right to the I don't know, the important part, the engine. There we go.
I mean, I guess
any other takeaways?
You mentioned James. Sorry, a certain beat reporter from The Athletic who covers the Detroit Pistons tweet. And so I'll just, I guess, wrap this up with a tweet from HP Basketball, Matt Moore. We've talked a lot about Matt Moore in the past. I just think he hit the nail on the head, and maybe it's just a good way to kind of sum up this game and a lot of what we talked about so far. OKC has only been tanking the same amount of time as Detroit has. You mentioned that, Jacob, as well. They just didn't get the lottery luck. OKC made the playoffs just 2 years ago. OKC's honestly just not very good at tanking. The culture and structure is too good. And then he mentions, they're up on the Suns right now.
The Thunder really need players that don't give a shit. And they don't have those.
Yep. Which is really a good thing as a whole.
I just think it's so funny that in a flattened lottery odds and a Detroit team that has been irrelevant since
Chauncey
Billups
Yep.
has the audacity to say, it only took 1.5 years. Since what? Since you traded Blake Griffin, which was an utter failure?
Since the OKC assistant GM came and became your GM.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
It's
just kind of funny. And it only took 1.5 years because the lottery balls fell right in a flattened lottery system to get you the number 1 pick.
Yep.
Anyone can talk that shit if you land the number 1 pick.
Our good friend Laz, though, Blue Wire Family, Detroit Bad Boys podcast. He'll be upset when he hears this. We love Laz. Good dude.
Yeah, and nothing against Detroit. Cade is incredible. But, I mean,
Cade's
that's
really, really, really good. We hope to get a Cade for this Thunder team.
That's – I mean, anybody is going to start progressing once you get – we all knew Cade was going number 1. Cade didn't work out for anyone else besides Detroit. Like, it was one of those can't-miss prospects.
That's like us. That's like when and if the Pelicans get relocated to Vegas, and we talk about how, and we come on this podcast and complain about Vegas stealing the team from the Pelicans.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
from New Orleans.
Yeah. It's the perception versus reality with the OKC tank that gets me. Like, for whatever reason, everybody likes to cherry pick OKC as the abomination black eye of the NBA. And yet there's so many teams around them that A, are doing it for longer, and B, are doing it better. They're not I'd get it if they were at the bottom of the barrel 2 years in a row, like Houston literally is. But instead, we're getting talked down to by Houston fans and writers of the tanking Thunder get what they deserve. Like, you've had John Wall rotting on the end of your bench for the entire season.
Yeah. Yep.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I don't think people like how unconventional Pressey has gone about things, right? Like, he was praised there for all the
what's he gonna do with all the picks?
Exactly.
Why are you hoarding?
I think
we got to move on.
Yeah,
we got to move on.
We've come full circle.
Yes,
we have come full circle.
It is time for a tank update.
Loser! You're a loser! And that means that the number 1 pick in the NBA draft goes to...
Still one of my favorite sounders of ours.
It's
loser. You're a loser.
That's a Jacob special right there.
Yeah. Sometimes you just you put together that's probably my Mona Lisa.
That and the trade sounder.
Yes. Probably just my Mona Lisa. All right. We have to start off first by talking about the Los Angeles Clippers pick. Lots of people have had questions about where this pick currently is sitting in the tank standing, so I want to clear this up a little bit. the Clippers pick currently is slated at pick 15. When you go to Tankathon, the Clippers have a worse record than picks 14 and 13 as well, but they're slated at 15. Justin, why is that?
The play-in game.
Yeah, since the Clippers are at 8th in the West, they stay ahead of teams that are 9th and 10th in the East. That's just how it works. So, worst case scenario, this Clippers pick could get all the way up to 16, depending on how some play-in games go. Best case scenario, it could drop all the way down to 13. So we've got it pretty narrowed down, and that pick being between the 16 and 13 range. It's going to be really important for Thunder fans to root against the Clippers, hope they lose back-to-back play-in games. As currently constructed, that first one would be against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then that second one would be against the winner of the New Orleans-San Antonio game. Now, maybe not such a good sign. New Orleans and the Clippers are playing right now, and New Orleans is down 20 going into the half. So maybe not the best sign moving forward for that pick dropping to the lottery, but it's looking like the Thunder are going to get somewhere between pick 16 and 13. That's pretty much the range where that pick can land at this point. Now for the ever-important Oklahoma City Thunder pick. Gentlemen, there was about 3.5 quarters tonight of basketball where you could go to tankathon.com and the Oklahoma City were sitting at number 3.
What a time. What a
God
time
bless.
it was.
But God hates us and took it away. So he giveth, so he taketh away. The Thunder back down to 4th. They were at 23 and 55. The Detroit Pistons at 23 and 56. So we're tied in the win column. The only difference is that Detroit has played one more game, and they have lost that game. Now, if the Thunder and Detroit both lose out for the rest of the season, both end at 23 wins, they will be tied for the 3rd best lottery odds. Now, how that tie will work, we talk a lot about the coin flip of last year. What will actually happen is Detroit and Oklahoma City will split all the lottery balls. So it'll be a 50-50 split. So instead of Detroit having a 52% chance at a top 4 pick and Oklahoma City having a 48% chance, it would be 50-50. They just split all of their lottery balls together. Now the coin flip would be if neither one of those teams jumps into the lottery and they both slide down, who goes out on the bottom and who goes on the top. That's what the coin flip will decide. Now, I want to ask you guys how you think this will end up, because Oklahoma City has 4 games left. Detroit only has 3. Thunder remaining schedule: Portland, Utah, the Lakers, and the Clippers. We know Portland sucks. Utah has been bad, but Utah has a lot to play for. The Lakers, I was going to say God bless their souls, but I don't want God to bless their souls because I hate the Lakers. God damn their souls. They suck.
Minus Russ.
And I enjoy watching them fail. They might have something to play for. There's a chance.
Hey, LeBron's going after that scoring title, and he needs to play in at least 2 of their next 4 games.
And then
next 4.
The Clippers, the final game of the season, the Clippers will have nothing to play for, as they will be locked into that 8th seed in the West. Although Paul George is back, they may still be trying to get him into a rhythm. That might be a silver lining for OKC. Meanwhile, Detroit has Dallas, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia left.
Oh, that feels like there's a good chance Philly will be resting some players, but like those next 2.
The Mavs maybe could. I saw someone retweet a quote from Jason Kidd tonight that said, they might look at beginning to rest some guys. Fingers crossed. Like, come on, sit Luka down. Let Detroit steal a stupid one from Dallas. But just looking at the schedule, again, it gets so hard to predict because of those reasons. But like Portland and Lakers feel extremely winnable for Oklahoma City.
I was just about to say that to you all. Like, as well as the Lakers, who've just been an absolute, show, complete, like, just disaster. Doesn't matter who's on the floor. AD comes back. LeBron goes off. They still are losing games. They just look like a team who are just ready for the season to be over with. Like they don't even want to make the play-in. And that's just, guessing on my end, looking into things more than I should. All that to say, like Jacob, you mentioned the Clippers potentially being locked in there to the 8th spot in that last game. Like there is a real world that scares me to death where the Thunder win 3 of their next 4.
Shut it, Taylor.
Because of the reason I mentioned earlier,
Come
right?
on.
Like you have all these G League guys trying to like make a point and prove themselves. And
At that point, you got to hope Indiana starts to lose some games.
Yeah, I know.
That would be terrifying and awful.
Look, there's probably some good talent there at 8 or 9
with a crowbar.
So where do you guys? I ask this every week, but where do you think they're ending?
4.
I'm a little more pessimistic this week, but I'm still
Taylor's picking
to my
6.
guns. Yeah, that's right.
I've got
fingers odds.
I've got fingers crossed that they can tie for 3. That would be wonderful if they could tie for 3.
It is very possible after earlier today, but
Detroit has played. Detroit's won 3 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10.
They didn't even play Cade today. Speaking of tanking,
hey, at least we are not Sacramento fans who somehow climbed their way up to 7 and are closing in on the Lakers at 8.
Goodness.
How awful. You guys want to do a spin and a quick what should the Thunder do wherever this spin lands?
Yes.
Simulation?
No, but yes.
All right. We're doing one spin because that's what real life is. And then we can talk about who the Thunder would take. And depending on where the pick is, what a trade up would look like. Because I don't think we've talked a lot about that yet. So here we go.
Point.
I'm ready to get hurt again.
God. Dude, even... I know I'm delaying clicking this
button.
What
a tease.
Even just hovering over and doing one click on the button gives me anxiety. Do you know what May 17th is going to be like for me?
We are not going to be okay.
I'm not even going to watch this stupid
I was going to say, we all might
get
together just to not watch.
I'm going to pop like 3 Benadryl, go to sleep, and wake up the next morning to find out what happened. Because I won't be able to take the anxiety. All right, here we go. And the Thunder slide down to 6. And the freaking Lakers jump to number 1, so it's New Orleans pick. That
would be awful.
Pisses me off.
So,
if the Thunder slide to 6, what's the move, guys? Let's say Chet, Jabari, Paulo, Ivy, Shaden Sharp, all off the board.
Oh, man. Then give me AJ at 6. AJ Griffin at 6. I think Mathurin would be in a lot of consideration. Mathurin seems like a thirsty guy.
I think I'd go AJ here. What would a trade up with one of these teams look like? If the Thunder wanted to get to Houston's pick at 3 or Orlando's pick at 2, what does a trade like that look like?
Dort in your pick.
You think so?
And the Clippers pick?
Yeah, or maybe like Phoenix's pick. That's a good point.
Especially if Houston's at 3. You ain't getting that pick easy.
What if Houston said, give us 6? Houston still owes OKC 2 swaps and a pick.
Good point.
What if they say, give us 6, give us our future pick back, and cancel the swap? And so you just have 1 swap with us left.
You do that in half a second.
I agree.
What if they ask for 6 plus everything back? You no longer have pick swaps with them. You no longer have a pick from them.
I mean, it depends on OKC's big board, but like I could also see like instead of everything back, give them back that pick like you mentioned, Jacob, and then instead of Lou, okay, fine, we'll settle for Trey Man. What do you guys think if they come back and counter with that? Or if they counter with, whatever. 6 overall, like Justin said, maybe the Clippers pick, and then Trey Man.
Yeah, or what if it's 6-15 and their own pick, but you get to keep the 2 swaps that are owed down the road?
I'd like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
6-15, and I think that pick conveys in 2024, 2023. I can't remember.
Where Presti just trades out of this draft completely.
Runs
it back.
Hey, and thinking about off-season content,
I want women.
I was going to ask you guys, what happens if the Thunder get pick number 2? What is a trade that makes sense for them to trade down in this draft? Do you know how
Yes.
many people would be like?
I don't like the
irate.
energy of this podcast
The-
tonight.
We're
Twitter
going to a
would
very dark place.
melt down if they traded down in this draft.
Oh my word, yes they would. Unless
I
there was like
hate
a
it.
player.
I hate
coming
it
back.
here.
But if it were for future picks, media would have a heyday. There would be like a ship the Thunder off, to a new city.
Would you do 6, 15, and Dort to go up and get Orlando's pick at 2?
Yes.
I don't love this draft, if we're being completely honest, but yes, I think you do.
Jalen Suggs and Lou Dort would be a really good defensive backcourt.
He does fit better than some of those guards.
And that
That's a
opens
good
up
point.
time for Trey Man.
Hey-o.
At 2, you can maybe freaking New Orleans has pick number 1 in this stupid sim. Maybe they decide to take they can't take Chet, right? You can't have Chet and Zion on the same team.
Look, we'll just trade for Zion with all of his injury
Oh,
risk.
my God. Zion and
Take him
Chet
off
in the
his
front
hands.
court looking like a 0 and a 1.
The New Orleans binary code. All right, let's do one more just because I'm a glutton
You're
for pain.
cheating. You're cheating.
Well, we already
Glutton.
did the exercise, Justin. Leave me alone. We can do another one.
Best 2 out of 3.
Jacob on lottery night.
Best
Just
3
one
out of
more,
5.
Mr. Commissioner. One more sim.
This is like the 5 stages of grief. I'm not bargaining right now, all right?
Freeze the ping pong ball. Freeze the ping pong ball.
I'm going to
Microwave it.
join QAnon conspiracy theorists if the Thunder don't win the lottery again.
If the Pelicans get the number 1 pick, absolutely.
Here we go. One more spin. Thunder get number 6
We're at
again.
6.
The Washington
It's
Wizards
significant.
get 8. You want to talk about a tanking team that doesn't get enough shit? Let's talk about
They
the
get
Washington
2.
Wizards.
Wizards
They
get
go up
2.
8.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
jump up 8 to get 2. That's what I meant. I apologize. New Orleans gets pick number 4 with their own pick, and
Houston's
pick
at
number 10 with
3.
that Lakers pick.
Houston winning up
It's just that
You know what?
karma. The tanking
I'm just not
Thunder
gonna worry
get what
about
they deserve.
until it happens. Till May comes around.
I bet
I'll
you
be
could. I
depressed
bet you
then.
could get a trade with Washington to get that number 2 pick. Give up
That's a
number
good point.
6.
If this
It
happens,
is Washington after all.
Jacob's going to be calling up Ant-Man and the Avengers to go rewind time and give it another whirl.
100%.
So you're saying there's a chance.
100%. All right, gentlemen, let's take a quick break to tell the people about our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to take Twitter questions, Reddit questions, Instagram questions, and then we are also going to do OKC Thunder superlatives. What's up, Thunder fans? This is Jacob from the Uncontested Podcast, and I'm here to let you know that we have fully redesigned our merch store to get you the best Thunder swag available. Just visit cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested Podcast to find all of our new designs. That's cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested Podcast to find new drops like Josh Giddey's Wizard of Oz or an ode to the Trey Man Step Back. We've also got all the classics like Dortal Combat, Liu Tang Clan, and everyone's favorite MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The best part? You can get any design and the style of apparel you want. So if you're gearing up for the summer and want a tank top, needing a hoodie for the winter in Australia, or you're wanting a Pokemon onesie for your baby, we've got you covered. Make sure to go to cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested Podcast to get your new Thunder gear today. All right, we are back. Gentlemen, let's do Thunder superlatives as we are closing in on the final week of the NBA regular season. As the OKC Thunder are winding it down, I wanted to take a look back. We'll do this again, not the superlatives, but we'll obviously be taking a look back throughout the season again during the off season. But I felt like now was a great time for us to assign some titles to some Thunder players. And I'm really excited. I think we got some good categories here. Justin, let's start with you. First superlative, Biggest surprise of the season.
Is this player or is this moment or
All the
thing
above.
or because there's a different one that's
However
most
you want to
surprising
interpret it.
player on our list. I just need to clarify.
That's why I changed my answer.
Go for it. I don't care. This is up for interpretation.
I don't care.
I don't care.
Okay, fine. Mr. Open-ended question teacher man. The biggest surprise of the season for me is that Teo Maladon sucks.
Okay.
We talked earlier about like the end of last season and he was looking really good. Came into summer league. Everybody's on muscle watch. Set like had the most assists of any player on the first day of summer league, like looked in control of things, and like it's just not been there at all since. And I know this is not a surprise to Jacob, who's very vocally crapped on Teo forever. But I expected Teo to be more of a like kind of run the second unit type of point guard this season, and he has just absolutely not been that.
He has not. Taylor, what's your biggest?
Well said.
Who is your biggest surprise of the season?
So, my biggest surprise overall, right? Because that's the first bullet point. Correct? Or are you asking me for my player?
Everybody hates Jacob's question.
Because you just reworded it to the first bullet point. Okay, so
it is the
first bullet point
yes.
is the biggest surprise. So I'm going out with the overall biggest surprise. And originally, that was one I left blank when we started the podcast, and I was like thinking about it as we went along, and I was thinking, it kind of surprises me just how stinking hard it has been for the Thunder to tank. But the more I thought about it, I was like, Thunder culture, whatnot. No, the thing that is most surprising to me, friends, are the Thunder rookies, because us three, it's kind of fitting that us three are doing the pod tonight, because us three were doing the live pod on draft night. And I don't think any of us were necessarily stoked about Giddey at 6. We were certainly not excited that the Thunder traded back and then ended up with Trey Mann. And then all of a sudden we got some random guy named Jeremiah Robinson Earl, and we're like, oh, okay, whatever. They have exceeded all expectations.
I think we were literally in the middle of podcasting whenever they selected Aaron Wiggins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we were doing our post-game, or our not post-game, our post-draft recap.
Yep.
It's like, oh, yeah, they just got a 4th rookie. Okay. And who would have thought that, Josh Giddey, after we did some more research, and I still owe Justin some Oreos for this.
Yeah, you do.
He becomes the youngest player to triple-double in NBA history. Not only that, but he does it multiple times, and just really kind of blew our expectations out of the water for him, I think. Trey Mann, I think the highlight for him this season, I can rattle off his averages, but especially the second half of the season, sets a Thunder rookie record of 35 points. Not Russ. Obviously, Kevin Durant would be a Seattle rookie, whatever. Still, 35 points, Thunder rookie record. Trey Mann scores 23 points in a quarter. First rookie in NBA history to make 7 consecutive 3-point field goals. I would have been blown away when we did our draft, our post-draft podcast, if you all would to tell me those things of those two players. Not to mention JRE, who seems like a solid staple player for the future of this team. And then Aaron Wiggins comes up, and he's not the next Lou Dort, right? But like in terms of that path, following that path, two-way, ends up getting that two-way spot, proves himself, and now is signed on a full contract in the season. Like, I think my biggest surprise, hands down, has been how much the Thunder rookies have contributed and how much they grew this season.
I think that's good. Next one, Justin, the player who has earned themselves a contract this season.
This one's easy because it quite literally happened. Aaron Wiggins, like Taylor just mentioned,
Yep.
Went from two-way player to full-time contract. Absolutely earned it. Like Taylor said, not necessarily the Lou Dort path. Like, I don't think Aaron Wiggins is locking up James Harden in a playoff series, but a very promising prospect that you found very late in the draft, later than most teams usually find promising prospects. And Presti did it more than once with Dort and Wiggins. So that's super cool.
Awesome. Taylor, the
like
player that has played themselves into a contract this season.
At first, I kind of thought Baisley, because we talked a lot about him, like now kind of earning that contract in the second half of the season. But actually, the one I'm going with is somebody we haven't seen much of, the second half of the season, and Kenrich Williams. I understand he's not up necessarily for a new contract right now, but the amount of teams that have been after him the past 2 seasons, what he did again this season when he was playing, I think Kenny Hustle is going to find himself with a very nice contract for somebody who wasn't even a proven player when he came to OKC.
That's a good one. I like that. Kind of a little under the radar, kind of sleeper pick. That's a good one. Justin, you had talked about this one pre-pod that you were struggling a little bit, so I'm curious to see what you came up with. Our next superlative is most quotable player.
It's interesting because I don't feel like this team is, you don't get the hot quotes that light up Twitter. A lot of that has to do with where the team is compared to others, but anything Kevin Durant has ever said ever gets quoted around by the entire NBA Twitter sphere for 24 hours, like the jersey retirement quotes. Like the Thunder just don't have anybody like that. However, the quote that probably demanded the most attention of any single quote in Thunderdom this season was, "It's not my plan A."
Ooh,
and so for that reason, Shea gets the most quotable player just because he's the most important piece to this Thunder team. So anything he says is going to be highly scrutinized, highly analyzed, overanalyzed. And for that reason, he's my most quotable.
I think that's spot
a very
on.
fair one. Yeah, that's a good one.
I struggle with that one, but yeah, I even think about. I understand this wasn't a post game or media quote, but I'm him. That kind of became a thing for us Thunder fans all season. I think that's a good one. I like too. That. Shea.
Very good. Taylor, did you have someone for most quotable?
I do not. Okay. I think Shea is who I was going to go with.
We'll all just go with Shea. I think Taylor Josh has had some really good and mature quotes. Josh is very well spoken.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Like you said, Justin, I can't really think of anybody else. That there's no other quote this season that really sticks out to me.
I'm him's a good ad. That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, next one, Justin. Well, actually, we'll start with Taylor since he didn't have a most quotable. Most improved player.
This one is the one I'm going with Darius Bazley for. I was so down on him the majority of the season, and I understand you could say Shea took a leap, but I think other guys who really contributed, and it was rookie. I mentioned the rookies who came in and improved throughout the season, but I'm not considering them for this award. I'll consider them next year. Because of all those things, I think Bazley is the one who improved the most. He went from a player who I thought there is no way Presti should, I'm going to be so mad if Presti gives him an extension and or a new contract this offseason to you know what? I think he's kind of deserved that. So for those reasons, I'm going Bazley.
Justin?
I think I'm going to go with Lou Dort.
I like that one too.
And that maybe it's sometimes hard, I think, to see the improvement in a guy who's maybe a little more established, like Dort, established within the context of this team. But I think what we saw from Dort was a more well-rounded aspect to his game. What he was able to do when Shea wasn't playing was take over the game and be the A1 option with defensive attention locked on him. And he dropped 30 multiple times, which is just kind of unfathomable to think back a few seasons where he could do some things on offense, but it wasn't a polished offensive attack. His finishing was all over the place. His 3-point stroke wasn't consistent. He's polished.
It was hardly there at all.
Yeah, he's polished those things. And I'm not saying he's
point.
Elite on any of it yet, but he's real good and he's consistent. And you pair that with his elite defensive aspects. And I think what you're seeing now is a guy that you could maybe see, I know Nick has been big on the, maybe trading Lou Dort before you have to pay him a bunch of money. And now it's maybe you just pay him a bunch of money because he's worth it.
That is a really good point. I think myself included there, we kind of forget how great Lou was earlier in the season before he got hurt. Yep. And what he was doing without Shea even there for a while.
Yeah. Justin, I think a good way to kind of sum up, especially the offensive stuff you were talking about, is just consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Lou had that massive game 7 in the bubble.
Yep.
There were games last season where he scored the ball a lot, but
Doherty 40.
It felt like those were blips on the radar.
Yep.
Those were nights where he got incredibly hot, where the ball was just going in the hoop. They felt unsustainable.
Yep. Exactly.
Where now the progression we've seen. I think the biggest thing he did was finish at the rim more frequently and with more consistency, and that really changed a lot of his game. So
I agree.
I think consistency is a big part of. That's who I was thinking as well, was Lou Dort.
I like that.
Justin, we're coming right back to you. This is maybe my favorite superlative we have. The player who drove the fans insane.
Poku. It's got to be Poku, the most divisive player on this roster, hands down. Like,
Yes.
nobody's lukewarm on Poku. There's either an irrational love or a seething hatred. And just go scroll through our mentions after any time Poku does anything, and you see both. It's absurd.
Poku is the second coming of Jesus, and Poku is the worst player to ever step on the floor.
Yes, exactly. And there's no in between.
There's no in between.
And so he had moments on both sides of the spectrum. He had moments like tonight where, he had a really solid game. He's a triple-double machine. He looks incredible.
He looks in control.
7-foot point guard. And then he has games like the other night where he throws a ball into the 7th row and everyone's like, wow, look at the OKC tank in action. Houston Rockets have never tanked this hard. And it's just like the most extreme reactions. I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody more divisive.
That's a good one.
Taylor, who is your player who drove the fans the most insane this season?
So Poku was absolutely up there. There was 3 players I thought about, and the one I ended up going with, again, maybe this is more so just because I was so torn on this player throughout the season. I was so divided. But Baisley just drove me absolutely nuts so many times, more than any player in recent memory I can think of. Like, I'd have to go back to the Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant days to think of like some of the surge games and some of those kind of players. Baisley was my guy for this. I think Justin's on something with Poku, and I think that if Jacob does go with a different player, that's probably the third player I considered. So I'm curious.
Who was your third? Because
Teo.
Okay, yeah, those are the 3 that drove me the most crazy. So
Yeah,
I think that checks out totally. Yeah, Baisley was, especially earlier in the season, like you mentioned, a lot of the ISO possessions, the drives, the crossovers, just like made me want to just take my head and jam it through the television in hopes that I would get electrocuted. Like, it drove me insane.
That just took another leap last
But hey, shout out to him. He really he came around in the second half of the season. So did Poku.
Yep.
So did Teo.
Justin, next superlative. Thunder player with the best social media game.
This is tough because I feel like the Thunder are pretty strong in this department with this roster. I gotta go with Josh. Gotta go with Josh Giddey though. The rookie has come in strong and made his mark felt on the social media game. Just the other night, ratioing somebody on Twitter, which is fantastic.
Yes.
I love that. I love the Thunder leaned into him for their April Fool's Day prank, showing off a photoshopped picture of him with a buzz cut. It's fantastic all around. And it comes with having like the first question mark, like, no, probably not the first, but like a very firmly Gen Z star on this Thunder team. I mean, he's all over TikTok. He's
bring me a shot.
he's everywhere and he's killing it. So I went with Josh.
I cannot disagree there. I consider Shea because of his awesome Insta fits, right? He's pretty
dude.
He's posting on there regularly.
Shea deserves it for
fire.
the Among Us image.
Yes,
when he showed up in that big puffy vest.
That was good.
That was good.
So
but
good.
He's so absent on other platforms. Like, it's just Instagram. And like Baze has had some really funny, awesome tweets, but it's just Twitter. Josh is on Instagram,
Well-rounded.
TikTok,
Yeah, Josh
Twitter,
is
well-rounded. Triple-double.
Kind of tying back into this one with the most quotable player earlier, Could you imagine being a Minnesota Timberwolves podcast and just getting to play Ant Edwards quotes all the time?
Yes.
I
That'd
would.
be a blast.
Incredible. And is he the most quotable player in the league?
Yes.
Well, you got LaMelo.
Yeah, and I think Embiid is really good.
Embiid's a good one.
Embiid's good.
But
yeah.
he's absolutely up there already.
After the Ben Simmons trade, when Embiid tweeted the picture of
I just
you guys
thought
know
he
what
was
I'm
a
talking about?
well-dressed
I
man.
just thought he was a well-dressed man.
Haters,
Oh
yeah.
my god.
I like Giannis too,
amazing.
showing up to his media availabilities with the dad joke book.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good touch.
Yes.
That's a really good touch. All right, the last superlative for the night. Justin, the most valuable player for the Thunder.
Veet Krejci, obviously. No, it's
Going off the rails of a Krejci train.
Hey,
Maybe the
It's
best
Shea.
meme I've ever made.
it's always been Shea. It's got to be Shea. Shea, SGA, MVP, future All-Star, future All-NBA, the cornerstone of this team. Unlike what StatMuse will tell you, not sure he's tired of all the losing yet. That 5-year contract with no opt-outs looms large, though contracts are mostly meaningless in today's NBA. There's nowhere else. It's Shea.
I could not agree anymore. I think the only thing I would add is, and maybe one of the things I should have considered for biggest surprise this season, is all of us, were so set on Shea, like, okay, maybe maximum ceiling. He's kind of like a 1B guy, maybe more likely like a 2 guy on a championship team. And I think what he's shown us over the past 2 seasons is that he can't be that guy. He needs another guy like that with them. But he just continues to impress and continues to improve each step that he takes. And he's shown us no reason that he won't take another step this next season, which makes me worried when it comes to the 2023 draft. But maybe that doesn't matter if Shea takes a big enough step alongside some of these other guys. So
Since the All-Star break, Shea's played 13 games. 30.5 points on 54% shooting, 40% from 3, 80% from the free throw line, nearly 6 rebounds, over 7 assists, almost 2 steals, and a block a game.
that's all NBA stats.
That's very, very impressive. For most valuable player in the chat over here, Eamon says Gabby Deck.
Yeah.
This is how long of a season it's been.
Right?
Gosh,
Was
that
he
feels
on
like
that team
forever
this
ago.
season?
Yeah.
That is insane. Yeah.
Yes, he
I was listening to
was.
the Thunder Universe podcast, and they were interviewing
That's-
Trey Mann here last week. And Trey was like, yeah, the reason me and Wiggins became so close was because Gabby Deck got waived and his plane seat opened up. And so Wiggins came and sat by me.
Maybe
He didn't
Trey's
say
the
it
most
like
quotable.
that, but yeah.
That's incredible.
He didn't say it
A+.
like that. He inferred.
All right, gentlemen. Well, the superlatives were fun. Before we get out of here, we hit social media today, asked you guys for questions for the pod. You guys showed out. So thank you so much for all of these questions. We got questions from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit. And then we are also live streaming right now that we got a lot of people in the room. So if any of you live streamers have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to those as well. But gentlemen, let's get started. I'm just going to throw a question out. Taylor and Justin, you guys answer, debate, whatever, and we'll just burn through them all. First one comes from co-host of the podcast. I don't know where this man is right now.
Some Persian party, he said. He's like jumping over fire.
I believe it's Persian New Year
Yeah.
right now.
Ah, that's cool.
Kamyar says,
the
if you
invite,
could dunk
Kamyar.
on any Twitter personality, who would it be and why?
I'm going to keep this national so as to not hurt any local feelings. And there's so many to choose from. But for the sake of brevity, I would love nothing more than to dunk on Dave Portnoy.
Oh,
Um,
okay. That surprises me.
I hate everything about Barstool.
Yeah,
And he's
agreed.
like 4.5 feet tall. And so his face
And
would
you're
just-
like 6.5 feet tall, so you
his
really
face
could
would
dunk on
be
him.
firmly in the groin region as I dunked it. and
Which,
it would make a great
unfortunately,
poster.
This
seems
is
like
the
you
most
might
trash
like.
I think I've ever heard Justin talk right now. This is incredible.
This one's hard to limit. I could go on.
I know. I see. The reason I was surprised that you went with him over somebody else is because you're also a fellow OU fan. So with the OU hate, the Russell Westbrook hate that we endured for for so long, and now just the constant Thunder ridicule. Colin Coward is my
More like Colin Coward. Am I right?
Get it?
Uh-huh.
I support that as well. I'd throw the
I
oop to you,
figured.
Taylor.
I figured.
Both very, very good choices. I got a list.
Right?
I'm like Santa
That's a
Claus. I
hard
got a
question.
list. I
We
need
could
to
have a
check it
whole
twice.
episode for that.
Who's your number one?
Me? Let me keep thinking about it. I've got
Okay,
a list
good.
of like 5. I'm burning through my mind right now. So I'll
Fair.
get back to this one before we get out of here. From @ThunderGuy69 on Twitter. If someone like Donovan Mitchell somehow became available, I kind of think that might be a possibility because Utah is a
Absolutely.
burning pile of trash.
Yeah. We were talking about that this morning in our
Do
Slack.
you guys think Presti would jump on the opportunity or stick with the rebuild?
Trust the process.
Yeah. I don't think he would do it for Donovan Mitchell. I think I made the tweet on our account here a couple weeks back, like Thunder fans, we want Donovan Mitchell, and Presti's like, we have Donovan Mitchell at home at Shea. Look, you can never have too much talent. Like it makes sense, but at the same time, I don't think that's the type of player that Presti would go all in for. But I absolutely do think he would if the right player, again, the extreme, ridiculously unlikely example we use is Cat. If a player like Cat became available, I think he would do it because we saw him do so with like Paul George, for example.
Mm-hmm. So both of you guys are on team trust the process.
Yeah. Right opportunity, he'll do
What
it.
happens, adding on to this question from, what was it, Thunder Guy 69? Thunder Guy 69.
Very nice.
Nice. I'm going to flip this question on its head real quick. Draft night shows up. The Thunder have pick 6. Whenever pick 5 is made, we get a tweet from Woj that says the Thunder have traded the number 6 pick. Lou Dort and a future first-round pick for Rudy Gobert.
Kill me.
I would hate it.
I seriously
but I would
think
love
I'd jump
the
into
pick.
like some self-mutilation at that point.
Yeah.
It'd get bad.
Yeah.
If we're watching the draft live at Taylor's house again, I'm walking off and finding the antifreeze, making cocktails for everybody.
Fun
We might have
fact.
to find a new team to start podcasting about.
One time I was in Detroit and I was walking back to my hotel from a Detroit Tigers game, and I walked past an alley where there was a man crouched in the alley pouring antifreeze into a blue Gatorade bottle.
Oh,
Hell
my
yeah.
gosh. I'm sure he was just making some sort of
A little nightcap.
bomb.
From @GoGetWins. Sarr's 3-point shooting seems quite solid to me. Do you think he can be in the Thunder's future rotation as a backup stretch 5?
No.
No.
Sorry.
Sorry. Get it? Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm already on record earlier this pod. I don't think Sarr plays any more NBA minutes after this season. Next, from I'm going to mispronounce this last name. Apologies, Ben Hieronymi. I think that's maybe
Sounds
how you
right.
say it. Doomsday scenario. We get the 7th pick in the draft. How much are you willing to give up to get to try and get? That's very wordy. To spot 1 or 2. What are you trying to trade to get up to spot 1 or 2 if we end up with pick 7?
I think anyone but Shea and Giddey are on the table.
I
What
would agree with that.
combination of that and what picks go along with it, that's up for debate. But if
It seems like you guys are already on board with that 7th pick plus all the Houston stuff.
Mhm.
The Houston pick that's top 5 protected and the 2 Houston swaps.
Yes.
I think you start there, or not maybe start there, but like that's where you ultimately try to get it if you're Presti. And then if they insist on including a player, maybe you take you. I think you definitely take back some protections or add some protections or something there. But I think that's the ballpark.
What if it comes out that the Thunder are really, really, really high on Chet? And whoever gets pick 1, Houston, Orlando, New Orleans, whoever, there's just a straight up number 1 for Giddey on the table.
I would cry.
I think you do it, but I don't think that's a realistic scenario. But
Yeah.
if you're the Thunder, I think you do it.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. We're going to shift over to Reddit from Reddit user DogFan20. I'm also a fan of dogs. How much do you trust Sam Presti's scouting team and OKC's ability to develop players? Is it good enough that if you can't find it, is it good enough that it can find a gem of a player in the top 10, regardless of how the lottery turns out?
It's a really good question.
I don't know if I'd say regardless. Like, I think your chances. We've looked at the kind of macro stats.
Yep.
The chances are way higher as a top 5 pick versus a 6 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
However, Presti's scouting team is extremely good and can help maybe tilt some of those odds. I think Giddey's a great example of that. I think Giddey probably should have been a top 5 player, but he was taken at 6. And I think that's due to Presti's scouting. It'd be very curious to see, had Presti picked at 5, is he still taking Giddey? Or would he take somebody else? I don't know. But I think you absolutely can lean on his scouting and his team's scouting, and the Thunder have proven that if they, get 5 versus 3, does that make that big of a difference? I don't know, but it makes me feel a little more comfortable having that scouting team than it would if they didn't.
And Justin, I think something that you're kind of leaning into there, this draft, the top 4, there's a clear like top 4 guys in this draft, but the order is different based on anybody, anybody you ask. That's where I feel really good about having Sam Presti and his team. Is I think they can find the right guy in that top 4.
Yep, I agree. And not just the top 4 either. I think we keep talking about consolidating picks. You can't take, fill in the blank rookies this year, next year, whatever. I wouldn't be surprised to see Presti make some moves and try and move around with that Clippers pick, maybe that Suns pick.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to watch, but I cannot agree more. And even though we all agree on that topic, I think to Dog fans' overall point, that doesn't mean though that it doesn't matter. You're like, oh, well, then why are we tanking so hard? Presti's so good at this, and the player development, so like it doesn't matter. Can you imagine getting Chet or even like Jalen Green this season in this Thunder organization? It just, you want to get the best player possible with your great scouting and with your great player development, and that's why.
And I think
doesn't matter.
The player development factor is big in there too. Taylor, I think I sent you a Twitter question for your podcast the other day on, of those top 3, the Chet, Jabari, Paulo, like which guy has a better NBA career if he ends up in OKC versus anywhere else?
Yep.
I think Paulo reaches a much higher ceiling if the Thunder draft him versus if the Kings draft him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's necessarily close.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Agree completely.
Next one from Reddit user, The Real Slim Muffin. If you were told 6 or 7 years from now that we are champions, but we didn't keep any of our current players, what fate do you think would happen to every current player? So let's not do every player, but maybe like the top 3. Let's do like Shea, Josh, and Lou. If the Thunder won a title in 7 years, but nobody on this current team is on the team in 7 years, what has happened to those guys?
I think Shea is starting point guard for the Toronto Raptors, who are a middling Eastern Conference team. I think Lou, I really like the Orlando example from earlier. So we're going to say Lou's in Orlando.
Okay.
Locking guys up for a 25-win team. And then Josh Giddey is a point guard for the Los Angeles Lakers, and he is the number 1 vote getter in the NBA All-Star and is dating multiple supermodels.
At the same time?
Mm-hmm. Duh.
Oh, man.
He's got 2 arms for a reason.
Oh, my God. Taylor, do you have anything to add to that?
The Thunder are no longer with OKC, and they're with another city.
Dang.
Jeez, get out of here.
Boo.
Reddit user
I'm on fire.
Under Siege. Fast forward 25 years from now. How many more jerseys have the Thunder retired, and whose are they? 25 years is really hard to extrapolate from. There's going to be guys that come to this team, play their entire career, retire, that we don't even know who they are 25 years from now.
Right.
But Kevin Durant gets his jersey retired. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so as well.
Russ gets his jersey retired.
Yep.
Does James get his jersey retired?
No.
Does
Paul
Shea
George
get his
doesn't.
jersey retired?
I think Shea does.
It depends.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I'm gonna say yeah.
Give me
And-
percentage chance that Poku's jersey gets retired.
1.
10%.
That's I feel like
That might be
that's
kind of high. Yeah.
1. I'm sticking with 1.
1.
Their next question, they sent multiple questions. What is the most disgusting possible draft lottery outcome this year that you can come up with? For me, it's easy. The Thunder get number 4 and they take Keegan Murray.
Oh, okay.
That
See,
would
I was
be
gonna say
god awful.
they get pick 6 and they trade it for like 2029 draft picks, future draft picks.
That's also pretty disgusting.
Any pick and they draft Chet Holmgren.
There we go.
Where are all of your
I'm kidding.
Where are all of your expectations at right now for how the lottery night will shake out? Feels like the fan base is very pessimistic at the moment. So regardless of where the Thunder end up pre-lottery night, where do you think they end up after the lottery happens? What pick do you think they have?
I think they'll be 4 through 6. And like, I just feel, to his point or her point, feeling pessimistic, probably because of last season. I could see it being like 6, but I think that 4 to 6 range is probably what I'm preparing myself for.
Justin?
7. 7 or 2. There's no in between for me.
Fair.
I am pulling up Tankathon right now to look at the pick odds. If the Thunder, I'm going to say, F it. They end up with 3 or 4.
Ooh, boy.
Both of those places I really like.
I would be ecstatic.
Because if you're 3, I feel very confident that Chet, Paulo, Jabari, 2 of those 3 are gone by the time you get to pick 3. My hope is that if you get pick 4, 2 of those 3 are gone and Jaden Ivey is gone and you just get the leftover one. So I don't have to stress about who they're going to take.
Yes.
And then he takes like Shaden Sharp anyways, and it doesn't matter.
Yes.
I would be ecstatic with that as well.
From Instagram, Brother Reed 11. Any watch parties for the draft lottery? I don't think we're planning anything, but we will do a live show immediately after. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll either be the live show where we are all incredibly happy or a live show where we're all talking ourselves into Scotty Barnes that won't actually end up happening.
Hopefully a handful of us can get together. Us OKC folks. That'd be fun.
For sure. From Instagram, Josh Pridemore 35. If the Thunder make 3 draft picks this draft, what is your expected roster for next year?
This one's kind of in depth.
So let's simplify this for time a little bit, because I think they could sign some guys, but they make 3 draft picks. That means 3 guys from this team are gone. Yep. Who are those 3 guys? Mine are pretty solid, but I'm interested in what you guys got.
So we can't do the 2A players, right?
Correct.
So Teo, Veet. Oh, but that one's kind of tough too. Teo, Veet, and gosh, I'm like trying to pull up the roster in my head and think of players that are. Oh, Justin, Roby, duh, Roby's
Teo,
not on
Veet, Roby. Justin, what do you think?
I agree on 2 of those, Teo and Roby.
I was torn on that third one.
Favors is the third one, right?
Favors.
Oh, Favors. That's the one I was trying to think
you
of.
forget that guy even exists.
Yes, exactly. Agreed.
Yes, that's it.
I take back my answer.
From Instagram, Charlie in 0 just asked Jalen Duren.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he is a person. He plays for the Memphis Grizzlies, or not the Grizzlies. The
Thunder end up with Justin's doomsday scenario of pick 7, and the Clippers pick gets lucky and ends up at 14. Would you rather them take Jalen Duren at 7 or Mark Williams at 14?
Oh, Mark Williams. That's recency bias, but like I do really think he's more.
I think
versatile.
I do Mark Williams too.
Yeah,
but I could talk myself into Duren pretty easily just because he's such a freak athlete. And like we mentioned, like getting in the right situation for him will be really important. And I think OKC could be that for him. but
it'd just be interesting because the type of player the Thunder are targeting or have been targeting, Jalen Duren is like the polar opposite of that.
Yep.
So kind of interesting. From Insta, D Tonin 9. Would you take a guard with our first pick if it's best player available, or would you draft for need?
I would if it's BPA. But I don't think Ivy is BPA, and I think he's the best guard currently, unless you consider Sharp a guard, and there's just not enough on him to make that conclusion.
Yeah, I think you go best player available.
I do too. We've talked about this. I can't get over the fit hump with that's a weird phrase. With Jaden
You're
Ivey.
right, though.
Just
Right.
can't do it. Shaden Sharp makes more sense for this team than Jaden Ivey. And for all we know, Sam Presti has Shaden Sharp at number 1 on his board.
Yeah, he's just
last
talking
one
to a second grade teacher.
Yeah. From Instagram, OKC versus the world. Thoughts on Shaden Sharp? Personally, I wouldn't mind him with picks 4 through 8.
Agreed.
I wouldn't mind him at 1. And that's not me being exaggerating either. I just feel like
we don't have enough information on him.
I just don't think I just don't love this draft. So if Presti is confident enough to take him at 1 overall,
man,
let's go with me.
Any given day, I talk myself into Jabari Smith Jr. and then I talk myself out. And then I talk myself into Paulo, and then I talk myself out.
Agreed.
Yep.
I'm kind of all over the place with this one. It's kind of difficult.
And then I see Victor do what he did like yesterday in his it's like the Jeep League or whatever. Oh my gosh, he's so good.
So good.
So good.
All right,
All
we
right.
have a couple in the chat.
Okay,
real
let's hit
quick. Predict OKC's record next year.
Oh, gross.
God, that's difficult to say without knowing the roster for next year. 30 wins.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I was going to say 32. So that's, yeah.
Okay, so 32 and 50.
Yep. There's some trade Lou talk. So what do you guys think about trading Lou? Pros and cons.
I think pros, it loosens up your logjam at guard. You want the highest possible ceiling players on the team as possible. I feel like Lou's ceiling is pretty defined. And pros, it opens up ample playing time for a guy that I think could have an incredibly high ceiling in Trey Mann.
And then also another pro that you alluded to earlier, Jacob, that Nick's been talking a lot about, like we said, you would essentially be trading him at his peak value right now, potentially, if we do think he's reached that ceiling.
And it saves it. I don't want to sound poor, but it saves their books, but it opens up flexibility for things
heading
moving
into the
forward.
new CBA. Good point.
Cons.
Yep.
He's freaking locked down, dude. And
Yep.
he's progressed every year he's been in the league. Who's to say he won't continue
On both
progressing?
ends. Yep.
He's best friends with Shea. We have like a kind of a Canada south of the border, except we don't have free healthcare.
Half of our merch shop has to get deleted.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Also, I love him. He's my favorite player ever.
And I can't say Lou Tang Clan ain't nothing to F with anymore.
There's a lot of cons.
There's a lot of cons.
All right, last
a lot of
one.
them personal.
Last one. A weird scenario. If Detroit gets 4th and OKC gets 1st, would they consider swapping picks along with Cade and Giddey? So you
Hell
have
no.
OKC getting Cade and the
And
4th
pick
pick,
4.
and Detroit getting the first pick and Giddey.
Yeah, Detroit hangs up the phone and then puts it through a shredder and then takes the pieces
Sends
from the
Presti
shredder
a big pile of poop.
and burns it and then goes and buries it in a field.
That was thorough.
Cade's freaking good, dude. He's insane.
really, really good.
All right, gentlemen.
That was fun. Good questions.
Agreed.
Well, I thought I had outro music on here.
Dun, dun, dun,
There we
dun,
go.
Sing it.
dun.
Hey, thank you guys so much for joining the pod tonight. We had a lot of people in the live room, which is awesome. We super appreciate that. If you haven't joined us yet, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, just the Uncontested. Catch us every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Bit of a new schedule coming up once we hit the off season, so be keeping your eyes on our social media channels for that. With that being said, you guys have a great beginning of your week. The tank continues Tuesday night as the Thunder take on the god-awful Portland Trailblazers. If they win that one, we all deserve the number 1 pick because that's just going to be a trash can of a game. We'll be with you, though. right after that game with another live post-game podcast. So make sure to join us. Season ends 1 week from Sunday, gentlemen.
That's
We only
crazy.
got 4 games left. So join us for the final hoorah as we gear up for a very important offseason for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Enjoy the beginning of your week. We will talk to you soon. Until then, and as always, Thunder up!